Welcome to the 9 Money Archetypes. To start, I would like to say that the 9 Money Archetypes are representations of how all of us can be and have related with money. We have all 9 of them inside of us, and some are causing problems and need a little guidance, and some of them are sleeping and need to be awakened. But trust, throughout your life, you will encounter all of these energies in some way or another, whether that is through other people like your family or friends or your colleagues, or through the various stages that we go through in our lives. Having an understanding of them without judgment and with compassion will enrich your money life immensely. I'm going to discuss all 9 of them, but there are 3 money archetypes that need to be fully present in your life in order for you to have a holistic and healthy relationship with money. And these 3 archetypes will support the 3 pillars of a healthy relationship with money. You need to have peace, joy, and confidence with money. But let's explore the money archetypes, all 9 of them, first in more detail. We all start out as the innocent money archetype. This is the beginning of the hero's journey. We're all born innocent with money. Most of us are hopefully born and nurtured as children. We don't have to worry about food and shelter and bills. Some children are put to work at a very young age and they don't get to fully experience their innocence, but most of us don't worry about where money is coming from. The innocent is happy-go-lucky, they have beginner's mind, and they are optimistic and dreamers. In the picture, you can see that someone is in a womb surrounded by abundance and love. Their head is now being squeezed through this birth canal into a world that has sharp, jagged edges. However, each of us will also have a fall from innocence where we are thrown from our safe, secure, peaceful environment into having to take care of ourselves. Some people refuse to move beyond innocence, and this is when difficulty can arise. The innocent that stays an innocent as an adult, they're usually afraid of their finances. They have their heads in the sand and will sometimes put their trust in someone else to take care of things. That shadow side of the innocent is that they're prone to denial and they blindly trust people without doing their due diligence. And underneath that optimistic facade, they are fearful and anxious, and it's difficult to make decisions. They are very careful not to be judged and will do what they can to be loving so that they will be taken care of. They also feel really naive and powerless and want to be rescued. Does that sound familiar? They will also try harder to be more perfect and more lovable so that they're worthy in someone else's eyes, so that they will be taken care of. They believe purity and courage will always be rewarded. An innocent needs to take small steps to learning about financial matters and begin to pay attention to how they are with money. Doing things alone with money is really difficult for the innocent, and they need support from either a coach or a friend in order for them to gain confidence so that they can lead on their own. The orphan money archetype can happen completely after the innocent. An innocent can quickly move into an orphan if they are not properly supported and cared for. When they have that fall from innocence, they experience this abandonment and maybe even a victimization. They don't feel safe and they lose trust in people and institutions that are supposed to support them. They take on that belief that they're all alone and they fear that someone's going to exploit them or victimize them, so they sometimes will manipulate a situation before it's done to them. In this picture, you can see that the weight of the world is on their back with the slings and arrows of life. They're burdened by it. And they're pointing outwardly, blaming others for their struggle. And they're emotionally cut off and shut down. Their work is to process that pain fully and learn how to forgive. But because we live in a world where we're supposed to hide our lost child, our hurt child, for fear of being judged by others, we often abandon ourselves and we need to forgive ourselves. And the result of that is we're not only wounded, but we're actually very alone. The work of the orphan is not only to process the pain of the past, but it's also to forgive the transgressions that were done to them or that they felt were done to them. A big piece of forgiveness will release a lot of that energy within the orphan. Like the innocent will believe that if they're good, they'll be rewarded. The orphan will often believe that if it's only the wicked that prosper. So orphans can be rebels. They decide to take control of their own fate. Sometimes they can show up as using people or situations to their advantage. They have this pessimistic feeling and a bit hopeless. And they really have a strong fear of failing. And betrayal is a huge energy within the orphan's matrix. They feel betrayed by others, and sometimes they'll even betray themselves first. The orphan turns away from themselves and eventually doesn't even know who they are. And they live this false sense of themselves. And this could show up as consumerism, where you dress this personality because you're trying to present a certain look. Like consumerism can replace real satisfaction. So you're very susceptible to advertising, looking for the right image or the right look and feel for that satisfaction. Their internal environment seems unsafe and they're looking for safety. But there's this poor self-esteem and they feel very wounded, and they can berate themselves. They have that really negative self-talk. This wounded child can often move into a caregiver where they have this deep sense of compassion for others. Orphans can also be overspenders and they just really want to soothe that pain that's inside. But they have enormous gifts of compassion. They understand interdependence, empathy, and realism. So the orphan is a really strong money archetype once they've worked through their stuff. The caregiver money archetype. The caregiver feels an inherent need to help others. They want to genuinely make a difference through love and sacrifice. They fear being seen as selfish or ingracious. And they have strong gifts of compassion and generosity. In the card, you can see that the caregiver is surrounded by those in need and they're taking from them. They're ripping their robes, and the caregiver is giving everything they have to those in need, but their robes are being torn. And it doesn't even look like the people taking are filling up in any way. They're gray. And there are all kinds of different kinds of caregivers. And first, I want to say that it's the first adult archetype that shows up after the innocent and the orphan. The warrior is also another one of them. A smothering caregiver will overgive. It can be a way of avoiding their own loneliness or hunger for connection. And that can come from the orphan that feels empty and alone. And then there's the suffering caregiver, that martyr. They will give to others, but they won't know how to receive. They have a fear of being obligated, maybe. It comes from a low self-esteem and an inability to say no. And that could be an underdeveloped warrior. They may use guilt and obligation to motivate others. This can only change when they find that inner caregiver within themselves. Unless they can take care of their inner world, they will always depend on giving to others in order to feel nurtured. And if there's a deficient caregiver inside, we might use external things to fill that, like cravings, like food or money or drink. A shadow caregiver is more likely to guilt trip or use passive-aggressive behavior to get people to do things for them. And this is a very difficult pattern to see within ourselves because we're rewarded for being a caregiver. But the lessons of the caregiver is to be willing to give fully, but also know how to say no. Know when the demands of the ego conflict with the soul. And learn really good boundaries. It's important for the caregiver. The Fool money archetype. The Fool is impulsive and fearless. They can be very undisciplined and irresponsible with money, and they love to take risks, a gambler by nature. In this card, you will see that there is this kind of jester personality who's skipping down the road with coins falling out of their purse. There's a hole in their purse, and they're not even aware of it. The Fool can have also a very addictive personality that loves that hit of new and different. They like the flashy, beautiful things, and it releases endorphins and makes them feel alive. The Fool will also give the shirt off their back and not even realize it's the last shirt that they own. And they're generous to a fault, and they love that game of making money and spending money. The Fool knows how to play. They enjoy the sensual pleasures of life, and their being is rooted in aliveness and spontaneity. And at the same time, Fools can also be anarchists and a bit irreverent because they don't like boundaries and rules. And they have this unquenchable appetite for curiosity. And they want to be free from all the responsibilities and the duties, like the Peter Pan syndrome. But there's a gift to the Fools. They save us from boredom. They are entertaining and inventive. And without the Fool, we might get repressed and uptight and depressed and bored. Because Fools make decisions purely on pleasure. And it's good to know what our pleasures are. But often it's the Fool's hunger for experience and adventure that will motivate us to go on this journey of creating change. And the Fool succeeds sometimes because they don't know any better and they try. They're very resilient and they don't get discouraged. They get up and try again. And that's a great quality. The Fool can be a trickster too, because they want to go around the rules and do things in unconventional ways. If you don't allow that Fool energy to come out, you might act out. Like it could be drunkenness, or rebellion, or gluttony, or sloth. We must feed our Fool with enjoying the pleasures of the world by making deliberate and responsible choices. But we can't ignore the Fool. The Fool can fear commitment until they're willing to commit to their higher selves and move beyond the fool into maybe the wise elder or a wise fool and harness their vibrancy for nourishment and alignment. That's the evolution of the fool. The artist money archetype. They have a fear of being inauthentic. They want to be unique and different, and they refuse to be a part of the material world. It's like money is the root of all evil. You know, their gifts are creativity, vision, and connection to the greater whole. Artists can feel separate from the world of money. You know, they may reject it and think it's oppressive. They have this position of the system, the social system being oppressive and the financial structures being toxic, which are not necessarily a lie. But a starving artist will fear financial doom. Fame and fortune for them only comes when they're dead. And they also feel like they can't create unless they're struggling. So in the card, you can see the colorful world in their mind and their imagination, and they're reaching out to touch the coins, and it zaps the color from their arm, almost like turning it to stone. The artists are non-materialistic and oftentimes are hermits or loners, and they can be very detached from this physical world. They may have a very spiritual or kind of in the zone creation approach to life, but there's a conflict between taking care of their physical needs and their inner world at the same time. The artist seeks growth and development at a deep level, and they create from a soul level, not necessarily from an ego level, but creating from both what is needed, that is mastery for an artist. Ego creation has the style of the warrior mastery, hard work and sometimes conflict. And if we don't have the wisdom of the ego, then we can't attend to the normal human concerns of the body, like our physical needs financially. You know, if taken over by the soul and we become the artist and we step out and we only are doing that, we can get burnout. And it's the magic is that sacred marriage of both the ego and the soul that will support the artist fully to have a spiritual depth and a successful life in their work and in their love. The Tyrant archetype. The Tyrant money archetype can show up along the journey for many of us. It's when we feel like we need to control things because we don't have enough. We can be selfish and narrow-minded sometimes manipulative and controlling. And there's a lot of rigidity with the Tyrant. The Tyrant is that archetype that tracks everything, and they're cut off from their inner reality, and they need to control the outer world to find some sense of control. They're detached to that healthy, connected urges that come up, like they just can't feel them. Some call them the misers or the ogres. In this card, they are surrounded with things and money and property, but they don't look happy. In truth, they're scared and they feel like there's never going to be enough. And they have a strong scarcity mentality. When you go on this money journey as an innocent, something very traumatic could have happened to you. And rather than finding your own inner healing, the tyrant is formed when we look to find power over another. It can become a power for evil or it can become a power for good. When we use our power in the wrong way, the only recourse is forgiveness or repentance. And it takes a strong resilience to look at those mistakes that we've made. The tyrant emerges not because we have too much power, because we feel like we have too little power. And we substitute power over others or other things or money rather than finding it within ourselves. The tyrant must learn to use their power to create a bountiful kingdom for all of us. Tyrants can be very fearful, cynical, and manipulative, and they settle for those lower pleasures like status and consumerism and power. They may hoard money and emotions at the expense of others, refusing to share their inner world. They are willing to compromise their values for wealth. And they do function from there's never enough. If you have that feeling, like many of us do, that there's never enough, then there is a tyrant running behind the scenes. Never enough time, love, money, food, whatever it is, that scarcity running through is the tyrant lurking underneath everything. They lack harmony. They don't feel supported. For a tyrant, greed is their downfall, and they need to learn the lessons of generosity. Tyrants, we can be a self-tyrant, which are highly critical, and we can be judging ourselves. You know, other external tyrants could be really financially successful, but they might keep it a secret for fear that someone might take it. When I'm working with a tyrant on all levels, self-tyrant or otherwise, I will give them the task to find a place to give, to volunteer, that shifts them dynamically. They realize that this act of service is only based on who they are, not what they have or what their status is. The warrior money archetype has courage and discipline and skill. They will work very hard to move their situation forward. And a warrior lives by their values and will fight for them, even if there's an economic or social cost. We live in a warrior culture where sports and politics, it's competitive, and that's associated with the warrior energy. But each of us has a warrior myth encoded in us. The warrior is in all of the great stories throughout our history and our pop culture. I would say that one of the most powerful warriors are single moms. And in this card, you see the warrior alive and ready to engage. They are wielding a sword of banknotes, and money and coins easily comes out of their hands. There's a development of the warrior, and there are 4 levels. The first one is the budding warrior, and that will be when you're learning a new skill and you will act and you'll do something, but then you step back for fear of a negative response, and you're not confident yet of who you are. And when you stand up to an authority, you're actually activating that budding warrior. Warriors have a very strong sense of their boundaries, and it takes practice for them to be strengthened. Then there's the clever warrior. They know when they're strong enough to enter the game, and they are prepared. They develop self-discipline and control over their impulses and their feelings. Then there's the good warrior. They know what they want, and they're willing to fight for it, and they can stay focused. They're often justice-oriented as well. The highest level of warrior is the enlightened warrior. And the real battle for the warrior is within. They have the courage to confront their inner dragons and gain the wisdom and self-discipline and skill to face their outer dragons in the financial world. The enlightened warrior knows when to act and when to stay still. There's a wisdom there. They are also the pillar of confidence in a healthy relationship with money, where they know how to learn about money and stocks and investing and how it works. They even have the confidence to negotiate their wage. You know, that warrior energy is what takes you to the next level with money. And having the confidence to stand strong with money is so very important. And the gifts of the warrior is that courage, that discipline, that skill. The wizard money archetype. The wizard has magic to change reality quickly, oftentimes more quickly than the hard work and struggle that we're used to. The wizard has a beautiful order in their inner world, and as a result, they can have order in their external world. They have trust and peace within them, and they're both loving and generous. You know, the wizard can manifest really easily wealth and health and joy. And for the wizard, the sacred is not outside. It's within ourselves. It's also in nature. It's in society. It's the earth and the cosmos. It's like within is without. In this card, you see the wizard touching heaven or the spirit or source energy or however you call it, and manifesting a tree of life on the earth. The macrocosm and the microcosm mirror itself. Jung describes the wizard wonderfully as living in meaningful coincidences, a magnetic field drawing to us experiences that match our inner reality. This is demonstrated in all the money archetypes, but with the wizard, it is clear. When they are clear, the manifestations are deliberate and conscious. They transform the lesser into the better. Wizards will use ritual to transform things. They focus attention and consciousness to become a new reality. Living in the world of material things is easy for the wizard. They can be financially successful, but it doesn't really define them. They have a command over the material world, so it supports them and those in their lives. The wizard also has a very strong intuition, and they will follow it. They know when to act and they know when to stay still, similar to the warrior. And the wizard has an undeniable trust that they are taken care of. Financially balanced and open to the flow, they live in the present. The wizard has an enormous compassion and tells the truth. They are wise and goal-oriented, and they know where they are going. The wizard upholds the pillar of peace. There's this deep sense of trust in their healthy relationship with money, a trust that there's more than enough to go around, and we're taken care of, and that, you know, there's no scarcity, and this ability to connect to our community and the people in our lives it comes from this sense of peace with money. And philanthropy can come from that as well. And it doesn't mean that you have a ton of money, but you do have a sense of peace, and you no longer operate from scarcity and lack. The wise elder money archetype. The wise elder has a much broader, more global perspective of the world. They have been here and they've watched how things have not worked, and they have a vision for a different way of being with money. They can clarify the genuine strengths and opportunities within money, and they also have a very broad global connection to how money works on the planet. The wise elder helps us let go of our ego, and it opens us to our deeper truth. And they can be very humble and ennobling, The wise elder will uncover that sleeping consumer within us and awaken a new story. In this card, you can see three wise elders supporting each other and the earth. They're together reimagining a new way to be with the planet and each other. They have ancient wisdom. They will filter out our own subjective truths so that we can achieve objective truth beyond our own personal truth. They stand behind our thoughts and feelings and desires. And the wise elder is capable of watching without being caught up in the program or the soup of how money is in the world that everyone agrees with. And the wise elder they're kind of free. They're free from the system and the institutions. And they remind us that we're not prisoner either. Sometimes we may all snap out of the trance for a moment and feel our wise elder, and then we slip back into it because of all of the inundations that we're given every day. We only step into our wise elder by having taken this journey, and we experience the truth of what is actually happening. We can have this more easily when we're around other people that are awake. Having the wise elder in your journey with money happens when you move through each one of the steps towards that wisdom. You have traveled the money journey. You have encountered sustainability and sufficiency consciousness, and you know that more is not always better. Some of the pitfalls of the wise elder can be a cutting off from others, maybe a feeling of being above it all, as well as a confusion or a deep desire for truth. They also have a healthy skepticism and awareness of the multiplicity of what it means to be human. The wise elder needs to develop both the mind and the heart and understand both rationally and empathically. And they know that we need to listen to one another, and we need to have patience and a vision for how to move forward. They hold that whole process as one, and we all have choice, and each one of our awarenesses will contribute to that. The wise elder upholds that pillar of joy with money. And having a healthy relationship with money means that you have to have joy with this 3D world and how it works. However, there's a lot of things that we don't know about, and joy can only happen when it doesn't take from someone else. True joy can only happen when it doesn't take from someone else. So when you have joy with the fabrics that you're wearing and you know that they were ethically made, they weren't in a sweatshop and hurting other people, or the food you ate is not full of pesticides and harmful for your body, for the experiences that you're having in the world, they're not taking advantage of another culture. So there's this level of joy that's multi-leveled. I mean, we enjoy the 3D stuff in the world, but knowing where they came from and honoring that's when true joy with money can happen. Like I said at the beginning of the journey, we have all 9 of the money archetypes within us, and strengthening the 3 pillars of a healthy relationship with money, peace, joy, and confidence go hand in hand, with strengthening the 3 archetypes that support those pillars. If you haven't taken the quiz, check it out and see what shows up for you. But remember, you are more than just one archetype.